There is a river where goodness flows. There is a fountain that drowns sorrow. There is an ocean deeper than fear. The tide is rising, rising. There is a current stirring deep inside. It's overflowing from the heart of God. The flood of heaven crashing over us. The tide is rising, rising.
us right now. Because we've come to meet with people that have shared our experiences, that know what we're going through. But God, you above all know exactly what's going on. You can see past the act that we can put on sometimes, Lord, and you see the true us. You see what's really hurting us, what's really going deep to the core of our innermost being, God. And you see it and you say, it's okay, I'm here. And God, we just ask you to make your presence known tonight to every single person that's in this room right now. God, I ask for your hand to touch them tonight, Lord. If they haven't seen you in a long time, God, let them know that you're there with them. And if they're walking with you every day, God, let them know that they're doing a great job and that you love and care for them. Father God, we lift up this song to you. Here, as we wait, seek your face. Come and make your throne upon our praise. Here in this place, have your way. The moment that we see you, we are changed. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. In wonder and surrender we fall down. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. Let every burning heart be holy ground. Here, not by power, not by might, but only by the cross we come alive. Here, we're undone, overcome by heaven's love revealed before our eyes. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. In wonder and surrender we fall down. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. Let every burning heart be holy ground. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. In wonder and surrender we fall down. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. Let every burning heart be holy ground. Chains fall, fear bow here now. Jesus, you change everything. Lives healed, hope found here now. Jesus, you change everything. Chains fall, fear bow here now. Jesus, you change everything. Lives healed, hope found here now. Jesus, you change everything. You're changing everything.
all around, and the Spirit of the Lord is here. The atmosphere is changing now, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around that the Spirit of the Lord is here. Let's sing that one more time. A miracle can happen now, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around that the Spirit of the Lord is here. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us.
Father God, we just ask you right now to surround this place. Surround this place, God, with your love, with your acceptance, with you telling us how much we are loved, how much we are favored and blessed because we know you, God. We love you so much, Jesus. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Good evening. What a wonderful worship that was. I so feel the presence of the Lord here, and I fully expect a miracle to happen now. So we'll go ahead. My name is Leanne, a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and tonight I'll be doing the steps because George is going to be sharing his testimony. So exciting.
Hi, Leanne.
Hi. So I'll read the steps, and then if you can say the verse. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors, that our lives had become unmanageable.
I know that nothing good lives in me, but what is my sinful nature? For I have a desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. Romans 7:18.
Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. Philippians 2:1.
Step 3, we made a decision to turn our lives and our wills over to the care of God.
Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Romans 12:1.
Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves.
Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. Lamentations 3:40.
Step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs.
Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. James 5:16.
Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. James 4:10.
Step 7, we humbly asked Him to remove all our shortcomings.
If we confess our sins, he is faithful and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. 1 John 1:9.
Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all.
Do to others as you would have them do to you. Luke 6:31.
Step 9, we made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others.
Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Matthew 5:23-24.
Step 10, we continued to take personal inventory and, when we were wrong, promptly admitted it.
So, if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. 1 Corinthians 10:12.
11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out.
Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. Colossians 3:16.
And step 12, having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and practice these principles in all our affairs.
Brothers, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore them gently. But watch yourself, or you also may be tempted. Galatians 6:1.
And if everyone could join me in the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. Let's have a round of applause for George. Tomorrow is his 10-year sobriety day. It's super exciting. And we look forward to hearing your testimony.
All right, thank you all. Thanks for being here. My name is George, and I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and so grateful that He chose to save me. It was His choice. I printed this in bold print, but I still can't see it, so I'm still going to have to wear my glasses. I'm getting old. These readers. As I wrote this, I sat there, and it took me a couple of days to write this. And I'd like to start out with the ending. In 2 Timothy 2:12, if we suffer, we shall also reign with Him. If we deny Him, He shall also deny us. And I chose to start with that because my life started out a little rocky, and I was not a believer. I always thought there was a God, but I thought that He didn't want anything to do with me. So I'll start with what I wrote here. It says, hello CR family. My story is probably quite common, and you will probably identify with a lot of what made me who I am today. I was born in Jersey to Cuban immigrant parents, and I have a sister who was 8 years younger than me. My father came to the U.S. in 1955 and my mother in 1960, and I was born in 61. When I was born, we lived on Fillmore Place in an apartment building where my dad had 2 jobs. He worked in an embroidery factory and also helped the building superintendent to shovel coal in the boiler for the heating system at night. My father was a hardworking man who always wanted more. And so when I was about a year old, he opened a flooring store with a partner who was my godfather. We did not have much family. We did not much have family at all in the United States, so my parents just had a few friends who were also immigrants, mostly newly arrived like themselves. When I was 4 or 5, we moved to a better building with 2 bedrooms, and it was one of the main avenues in the town. I didn't mention, we lived in West New York, New Jersey, and Union City, New Jersey. Those of you familiar with that area. My mother did not speak any English, but my father was pretty fluent and spoke with an accent. When I got to kindergarten at age 5, I spoke very little English because I was always at home with my mother. Kindergarten was a shock for me. I did not fit in at all. I did not speak any English. And I was bullied by the other boys and also by the teachers. I learned to fight and would get in trouble every day. My parents were called in to speak with the teachers and the principal at least once a week to discipline me. I was not doing well at all, and our family life was not doing well either. At this point, my father's business was doing very well, and he was making good money. He was also making new friends, which kept him out all night, most nights of the week. My parents would fight a lot with screaming, throwing things. So I would just hide in my room and climb out onto the fire escape, where I would just sit and stare at the cars going by and at the street light as it changed colors. I have no idea why I did that. I also started to contemplate suicide quite often. I would think of how I would jump out of our 5th-story fire escape and wonder when they would notice I was gone. My father drank a lot, and he also drugged a lot. He was a functioning alcoholic and a drug addict. By the 2nd grade, my English was much better, and I was able to make friends, but I always gravitated towards the troublemakers who were just looking for attention like myself. By the 3rd grade, my father had split up with his partner, who was my godfather, because my godfather was a good church-going man who did not agree with my father's new lifestyle and corrupt friends. My dad's new partner was just as bad as my dad. They were very hard, business-savvy men. They opened a store on Bergen Line Avenue and 43rd Street, which turned out to be one of the best businesses in town. By this time, the fights at home were routine. My dad would come home drunk, and my mom would complain and threaten to leave him all the time. Unfortunately, she had nowhere to go, and absolutely no family in the United States. Cuba had become communist, and there was nowhere for my mother to go because she had no home to go to. She couldn't go back to Cuba. Cuba was off limits. She put up with a lot of abuse, probably more than I was able to understand at the time. She wanted to become more independent, so when I was around 6 or so, she got a job in a sewing factory to make her own money and be a little more independent. I was going to school, being taken care of by a family in the building that was just as dysfunctional as we were. The lady had 2 children, a boy 2 or 3 years older than me, and a daughter a few years older than both of us. They would beat me, and the girl would show me some perversions when we were alone. The lady would beat me with her shoes, and the husband would beat me with his belt, just like he beat his own son. I don't remember how long this went on for. I went into fight mode. I started to hit back, and one day the lady told my mom she could no longer take care of me because I was bad. I was a bad one, right? So I got a better babysitter after that. Really nice old lady who would feed me the best food ever, and showed me a kinder way. I felt really good at her house. I felt safe while I was there. She was really kind. I even gained a little weight at this period of time. Around 8, my life got really interesting really fast. You see, I had my first drink and my first blackout all in one night. My parents had a party, and I got under the table with the drinks. My parents had a party, and I got under the table with the drinks on it, which I had a long tablecloth so they could not see me under the table. When they would put the drinks down, I would reach up, take a swig, and put it back. I don't think there were any other children in the house because I don't remember playing with anyone that night. I got drunk and climbed on the table with a towel around my neck and said I was Superman and that I could fly. I jumped flat on my face, and that was the end of the party. I grew up very fast after that. My father started taking me to bars where they gambled all night and started taking me to strip clubs a couple of nights a week. My mother would complain that I wasn't getting any sleep, and honestly, sometimes I would beg my father to take me home. And he could come back alone. Instead of taking me home, what he would do is he would give me drinks. To get me drunk. I was 9 years old, and I could drink all my friends under the table. I remember coming home with toothaches and my mom telling me to take a swig of whiskey to numb the pain until the next day when someone could take me to the dentist. One of the chapters in my life was a move to Florida for a year and a half. My father had a bleeding ulcer and needed to get away, and my mother was sick and tired of my dad cheating on her, so we moved to Hialeah for a new beginning. I actually did have a great year and a half where I did not drink every day and actually got good grades in school. Also, one of the only two nieces my father had in this country would take me to church on Sundays with her children, and I took some catechism classes. My dad's business was still booming, and he had lots of money. So as soon as his health got better, he went right back to his old ways, and we moved back up to Jersey. We bought a big house in West New York, where they settled down from 1973 to 1986. At 12, I was drinking on a regular basis and hanging out with all the troublemakers in school, of course. My grades were bad, but I could get 100 on any test that I took. It was just that school was not my thing. My teachers would try to get me to apply myself to the curriculum, but my interest was girls, cars, motorcycles, and money. At the age of 13, the drugs came into the picture. I started smoking pot one night on vacation in Florida at the Jefferson Hotel rooftop solarium in Miami Beach. That's where my life really got out of control. I started working in the afternoons to make money to buy cigarettes, drugs, and alcohol. I was 13 and could drink and smoke in my house with no questions asked. Blackouts were a normal part of my life. My sister was 5 by now and was exposed to this lifestyle. She was raised very dysfunctional and to this day has bad memories of these times. We have never really been close for any length of time, and I really feel guilty about being a contributing factor to her terrible childhood. She blames me now for my part in it, which I wish I could take back, but I can't. The sad part is that I had no idea she was hurting. You see, to me, I thought I was normal and that everybody lived this way. We were all dysfunctional. By 15, I had graduated to heavier drugs like LSD, angel dust, heroin, quaaludes, mescaline, and a few others. I was also permanently expelled from the school system before I turned 16. I lived in a blackout for many years, and quite honestly, I don't remember much from 1978 to 1986. I was very successful in my business dealings. I had a flooring installation company, which was always very successful, and I made much money with which to finance my habits at ease. In 1987, proved to be a turning point for my drug abuse though. I got divorced from my first wife, or as we alcoholics put it, my first victim. In 1987, I got caught up in an affair with a drug dealer's wife, and we tried to take his clientele until he found out and had a hit put on me. Luckily, I was warned and was able to get away and moved to Hialeah where my parents were now living retired. This is where I met my real wife, and we've been married for 31 years. Bless your soul. Early in our marriage, she found out about my drug use and asked me to quit. Don't ask me how, but I quit all the drugs cold turkey and I've never used them again. It's been around 30 years. I have not done any coke or smoked any pot or any other drug. There is a catch. My alcohol consumption quadrupled tenfold. I began to drink like I was trying to put the alcohol companies in a shortage. I was always an alcoholic, but now this was all I had to get high with. I don't know how my body held up all those years. I drank to die for 21 years. On the outside, I seemed to be happy, but inside my soul was dying. My mother divorced my father right after I was married in 1989, and I made the mistake taking sides. I did not speak to my mother for 21 years, which was very painful for both of us. She was not allowed to see my children, and they met her when I got sober in 2010, when they were teenagers. This is where my guilt comes in. Not only did I rob her of being a part of her grandson's life, but I robbed my sons of their childhood. Chris and Kevin have turned out to be two upstanding men with great accomplishments, and I cannot take any credit for this. Rosie, my wife, gets all the credit for being the rock, the foundation of our family, while I was out of my mind. I cannot go on about my drunkalogue and close calls, but we all know that drunk alcoholics do many stupid things, especially being depressed and suicidal for years. The end was when my liver and pancreas started to shut down. My health got really bad, and so did my depression and my anxiety. I lived with panic attacks for most of my life, and even as a teenager. I remember freaking out for no reason on many occasions, and just drowning myself with drugs and alcohol until they went away. Now I was really facing death and could not stop drinking, or my downward spiral. My last drink came when, after being diagnosed with the beginnings of pancreatitis and winding up in the hospital 5 times, I could not take the emotional and spiritual pain I was in. The sad part is all this did not stop me from drinking. When the doctor told me I had 6 months to live, I did not know how to tell my family. How do you tell your family you're dying? I really thought they were better off without me. I started drinking around the clock, and as much as I could take of many Xanax as I could. I started drinking around the clock and taking as much as I could, and taking as many Xanax as I could. I finally came to my spiritual end. My soul was dying, my world was dark. I don't know if any of you have ever been in that darkness. It was as if I was already dead, and the pain was not just physical, it was actually somewhere deep inside, and hurt more than any other pain I had ever felt. It was worse than any beating I had ever taken. On February 25th, 2010, I came into that morning with sweats, tremors, my body was really aching, my mind was blanking out. I told myself, this is it, this is my last day on earth. Let it be known, it was. The old me died that day. I proceeded to get more drunk than ever and strapped a .45 to my waist. I had arranged to do a night job at a local hospital because working at night there was less people to see me drunk. I was working a lot of nights, purposely to keep out of them so nobody would see me. Working at night, less people saw me drunk. I knew the condition I was in was disturbing. My eyes were turning yellow and my skin was also. I stunk. I mean, my sweat smelled like death. The plan was to lock myself in my warehouse and have my employees find me dead of a gunshot. God had other plans. I somehow spoke to my son on the phone, but I don't remember who called who, and they don't seem to remember either. My wife called the cops. God had other plans. The cops found the suicide note and threw it away. No one ever saw it, and the officer told my wife she did not need to see it. There's no record of my arrest, and I could not find the officer to thank him after I had recovered, of course. I remember hearing the cops outside and thinking, they are too late. I put the gun to my head and pulled the trigger. The gun didn't fire. I then aimed it at the wall and pulled it, and it fired. I looked around me trying to figure out what happened and how it didn't go off when I know it was working perfectly. I felt as if someone was there with me, but it wasn't possible because the doors were all locked and the cops were screaming. They heard the shot. I opened the door and stepped outside in the blackout. I don't remember too much after that, except bits and pieces. Something I didn't write down here is my next thought was suicide by cop. And for a split second, I thought, I'm going to ruin some cop's life. So I put the gun down before I went outside. When I came to, I was in handcuffs, and I was Baker acted and taken to Citrus on suicide watch. My first phone call was to my wife. I demanded that she bring money to bail me out. Money was no issue. When she told me that I had really gone too far this time and I had lost all my rights, I felt a great demoralization. Like I was totally homeless in a great desert, all alone. At the same time, I thought I felt humiliated, but in a way I had never felt before. I think this is the first time I really asked God to help me. In AA, they call this incomprehensible demoralization. 4 days felt like 4 weeks. I lived so many things in those 4 days that I know God was infusing me with a new life. I got out of there under strange circumstances after winding up at the Palmetto Hospital with an IV because I had passed out at Citrus and they got scared I was going to die. I was seriously dehydrated. The rest is now my story of the journey to sobriety and my growing relationship with Jesus Christ. God has kept me away from another drink now for 10 years. And my journey continues. I was told to find a Bible verse when I first got sober. I'd heard that in Celebrate Recovery, and I heard that I never really had any Bibles when I got sober. There were no Bibles in my home. Not one. Didn't exist. I wouldn't allow it. My wife didn't have any Bibles either. Literally, there was no Bibles in my house. And it's funny because the number 317 had followed me around for a long time. I always used it for combinations of locks. I used to win the cash 3 with it. 317 was always my favorite number, 317. I never knew why. So one day after a couple of years sober, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. I found freedom where the Holy Spirit found me and gave me the freedom that I've been searching for. Also, Micah 7, 18, 19. Who is a God like you who pardons sin and forgives transgressions of the remnant of his inheritance? You do not stay angry forever, but delight to show mercy. You will again have compassion on us. You will tread our sins underfoot and hurl all our iniquities into the depths of the sea. And then I'll end with 2 Timothy 2:12. If we suffer, we shall also reign with him. If we deny him, he also will deny us. And from the time I got sober to now and forever, I praise my Lord Jesus Christ with all my heart. And I thank him for his mercy and grace for keeping me sober for 10 years, because no way I could have done this on my own. Where I came from is not where I'm going. And all I want to do now is just serve my Lord Jesus Christ and just do better every day. I want to wake up tomorrow being better than I am today. And just continue this beautiful journey. There's a lot of stuff I left out because it's inappropriate. I've learned that you don't trash other people to make yourself feel better. A lot of, I'm gonna end it right there. So thank you all. Thank you for being a part of my journey. And I pray for every one of you. Thank you.